The king ordered Chioma to be taken to the same river she had killed his daughter and be drowned there. Once upon a time, there lived a very benevolent king called King Adewale. King Adewale was as handsome as he was kind. He was married to Amaka, who was as beautiful as she was kind. They were a pair made in heaven. Because of their kindness and good hearts, the land enjoyed bountiful harvest and blessings. Everyone was happy except for the king and queen, who couldn't bear a child. They used all kinds of medications, visited all kinds of doctors, but none had a solution for them. The queen was devastated. She didn't want the king to die without a child, as he would lose the throne forever. So, in order to preserve the king's legacy, the queen urged the king to take a second wife. For years, the king refused, clinging to Amaka's love and praying to his creators for a child. But nothing seemed to change. Queen Amaka knew that in order to make the king agree to her pleas, she had to take a drastic measure. So one day, Queen Amaka took her entourage and marched to the river. She had sent a guard to pretend like he just found out about her little trip to the river and informed the king so that he would come after her. The king, on hearing that the queen had headed out to the river, the king was so surprised. Queen Amaka hated the river, so the king couldn't understand why the queen would want to go there all of a sudden. Out of curiosity, the king followed her, keeping out of sight. The queen, on reaching the river, told her entourage to wait outside the river. She removed her shoes and walked into the river, knowing fully well that the king must have followed her and would save her. The king began to panic as the queen went deeper and deeper into the river. He couldn't take it anymore, so he rushed out and dived into the river. By this time, the queen had disappeared completely inside the river. The king searched frantically for the queen. Finally, he saw her and rescued her. The king was so angry at the queen. He scolded her for such a cruel and irresponsible act. He promised to punish her entourage, who just stood there and did nothing to save the queen. The queen smiled and held onto his hand gently. "What if I wasn't here?" he asked, staring hard at the queen. But the queen only held his hands gently, flashing a heart-melting smile at the king. She told him that since he had refused to take a second wife, she decided to end her life. Maybe by then, he would take a new wife. She threatened the king that if he didn't take a wife, she would take her own life. The king was shocked. He didn't know that the queen was that serious about the matter. So, in order to keep his lovely queen alive and healthy, the king decided to marry another wife. The queen was so happy. A festival was held for the king to select a new wife as usual. The maidens of the kingdom were very excited. They polished their skin, bought beautiful clothes, and adorned themselves in the most beautiful way as the maidens danced beautifully, showing off their beautiful bodies and grace. The queen watched with utter excitement, remembering her days as a beautiful young maiden. She too participated in the maiden festival and had found grace in the eyes of the king that day. He had fallen in love with her immediately he laid eyes on her and had chosen her as his bride without a second thought. She had seen love and happiness in his eyes as he watched her dance that day. She smiled to herself as she remembered. Just then, her eyes caught a maiden. Her name was Chioma. She was beautiful and radiant as the sun. Her body was smooth and shiny. Her smile was endearing and soft. Amaka loved her and decided to tell the king. But when she turned to look at the king, he looked so unhappy. He looked disinterested and far away. She showed the king the maiden she liked, but the king told her that whoever she picked was good enough. So Queen Amaka announced Chioma as the winner. Chioma was from a rich home. She was her father's only daughter, so she was treated like a princess. Coming into the royal family was not so different from the life she had led. Soon, the king and Chioma were married, and she became the second queen of the kingdom. Amaka and Chioma became very close. They did everything together. Queen Amaka loved Chioma like a sister and treated her so well. The king was so happy that both women were getting along very well. He had feared that marrying a new wife would bring chaos and confusion in his palace. But now the opposite was the case, which made him very happy. It was no news that the king was in love with his first wife, Queen Amaka, so he would spend days and hours with her, both laughing and enjoying each other's company. But the king only went to Chioma at night to try to make babies. Soon, this began to get to Chioma. She was a beautiful woman, and wondered why the king didn't find her attractive enough to love her like he loved Queen Amaka. Jealousy and bitterness began to creep into her heart slowly. She began to hate Queen Amaka. She wanted the king's love all to herself, and so she began plotting on how to do so. But she never showed any hatred physically towards the queen. She still laughed and played innocently with the queen. Chioma wanted Amaka out of the way so she could become the only queen of the land and the only woman in King Adewale's life. But she couldn't do so just yet, knowing the king would throw her out or probably kill her if she insulted or harmed the queen. Soon, Chioma was pregnant. The king and queen's happiness knew no bounds. They threw a lavish feast in honor of Chioma for fulfilling their long life dream. Chioma was so happy. She was certain that she would give birth to a boy. So she started preparing her mind to be the queen mother of the land, a position that is meant for the mother of the prince and the future king of the kingdom. And that position surpassed that of Queen Amaka, who didn't have any child. One day, Queen Amaka fell sick. All efforts to make her feel better failed. Panicking, the king called for the royal physician. The royal physician arrived, and when he examined her, he gave the most unusual announcement. Queen Amaka was 6 months pregnant, same as Chioma. The king and queen were shocked. How was that possible? They asked. The doctor told them that Queen Amaka was one of those rare women who could carry a pregnancy for 9 whole months, but their bellies would not protrude. The king and queen were so happy. The king went mad with joy. He organized a festival, twice what he did for Chioma. Soon, the king forgot all about Chioma. He stopped going to her or having any contact with her. Chioma went mad with anger. She couldn't believe it. Why would Amaka be pregnant? She went to her mother and friend, who assured her that she would give birth to a son. Then the king would come crawling back to her. The delivery day came, and both Queen Amaka and Chioma were in labor at the same time. Soon, both gave birth to healthy babies. That day, Queen Amaka had given birth to a baby girl, while Chioma had given birth to a baby boy. Chioma leaped for joy when she was told that her baby was a boy. Finally, her dreams had come true, she thought, sharing gifts in the hospital to celebrate the birth of her son, who would one day be king. On the other hand, Queen Amaka was so happy with her baby that one would think that her baby was a boy. The king was always with Amaka and her daughter, but Chioma didn't care. She had a son who would one day be king, making her the queen mother. But something unexpected happened. The king announced that both children would have to compete for the throne. Chioma was devastated. She knew that the king had done that to favor Queen Amaka's daughter. She vowed never to let that happen, not while she was still alive. Years passed and the children grew beautifully. Chioma's son, Ikenna, and Amaka's daughter, Akonna, were inseparable. Ikenna, Chioma's son, loved Amaka so much one would think that she was his mother. He would cry day and night, seeking for Amaka's embrace. He would only keep quiet when Queen Amaka has carried him in her arms. This was very strange and unusual. Chioma began to suspect that Amaka had done something to her son. It was obvious that the boy loved Queen Amaka more than his own mother right from birth. Chioma didn't know what Amaka did, so she decided to get even with her. One day, Chioma went to Queen Amaka and beseeched her that they should go to the river for a bath. Amaka had laughed, telling her that she didn't like the river right from when she was a child. But Chioma told Amaka that she could wait and watch her swim. Chioma told Queen Amaka that she just wanted to spend quality time with her and her daughter. So that day, Queen Amaka and her daughter with Chioma and her son went to the river. When they got to the river, Chioma had laid a blanket for Amaka to sit while Chioma swam in the river. After some time, she came and carried Akonna. She playfully went with her into the river. Then all of a sudden, she fell inside the river with Akonna. When Chioma came out of the river, Akonna was nowhere to be found. Queen Amaka went mad with grief. For weeks, swimmers looked for Akonna, but all efforts were in vain. This affected Amaka's health. Chioma had turned the story, saying that Amaka was the one that took her own daughter into the river. The king was mad with Queen Amaka for even taking their daughter to the river. This affected their relationship. All of a sudden, the king turned all his love and attention towards Chioma. He now did everything he used to do with Queen Amaka with Chioma. He announced that Chioma's son was now the heir to the throne. Chioma was now living her best life with the king, while Amaka was cast aside and forgotten. One fateful day, the king and Chioma were eating together happily, when suddenly, Chioma choked on her food. She drank a glass of water and suddenly began to vomit blood. Everyone was shocked. At first, the king thought she was poisoned, so doctors were called, but they couldn't do anything to help Chioma. Chioma was in great pain, so the king asked for Ikuku, the messenger of the gods, to be brought to the palace. The messenger of the gods arrived. After doing some incantations, he urged Chioma to confess if she wanted to live. The king was surprised and turned to Chioma. Chioma, who was in severe pain, recounted what happened. One fateful night during their pregnancy days, when the king had abandoned her, she was devastated. Overwhelmed with emotions, she ran to the river. There, she wept bitterly, calling on the river goddess to help her. While she was crying, she heard a voice in front of her, asking her what she wanted and why she was disturbing her peace. Chioma looked up and was shocked to see a beautiful mermaid with long red hair and blue eyes. She had only heard stories, but she never knew they were true. She quickly kneeled in front of the mermaid and begged her to tell her if she was carrying a boy. The mermaid looked at her tummy and told her that the baby was already dead. Chioma wept bitterly. Then she asked about Amaka's pregnancy. The goddess revealed that Amaka was carrying 2 babies in her womb, a boy and a girl. Filled with jealousy, Chioma begged the goddess to give her one of Amaka's babies. She wanted the boy, so the goddess granted her wish. But the goddess wanted a sacrifice, so Chioma had vowed to bring a sacrifice to her. She had decided to sacrifice Amaka's daughter Akonna to the river goddess. That was why she asked the queen that day to go to the river with her, so that she could use her daughter Akonna as the sacrifice to the goddess. After she confessed, the king looked around for his queen, but she was nowhere to be found. He looked at Chioma and asked why he was eating with her and not with Amaka. Chioma broke down in tears. She told the king she had cast a love spell on the king, which made him forget about Amaka and love only her. Well, the spell was now broken, and the king was not asking for his first love. The king ordered Chioma to be taken to the same river she had killed his daughter and be drowned there. Chioma was taken to the river and thrown into the deepest part of the river. They waited until she had drowned. When they returned to the bank of the river, they saw a miracle. They saw little Akonna lying unconscious on the river bank. The river goddess, who had seen the evil heart of Chioma, had decided to preserve Akonna's life, knowing that she herself would be sacrificed to the river for her evil deeds. Few days later, the king and queen were back together in happiness and love. Akonna was up and healthy, playing with his little twin brother Ikenna. The bond between the 2 siblings and Ikenna's love for Queen Amaka was now understood. She was his mother, a true bond, proving that blood is thicker than water.